What is going on, guys and girls? How are you doing today? It's Singer Roleplay here once again. Today I want to talk a little about Wolcen Lords of Mayhem. I just got back to the game to test it out and to see what they did just before the release, because the game is to be released in January 2020 and this is right now is December, so there's like 2 months before the release. And I wanted to get back into the game to have the feeling like what they did so far, how much content is there, how the game feels, how the game plays, what there is to do, what are the game system, how's the combat, the graphics, the end game grind. I want to give you guys an honest review on the state of the game so far to give you the full understanding what should you expect. Also a comparison to the existing games like Path of Exile, Grim Dawn, Diablo 3, Last Epoch, and all that juicy games like Lost Ark as well. So what I want to see now is the complete overview and the comparison, as well as some of the history of the game development, because the game has been in development for over 5-6 years. So we'll see where the game is at now. So let's get going. Before we go further into the video, I would like to stop for a second and thank my Patreon supporters and Twitch subscribers. You guys are making a huge impact on my life and allow me to get going and continue creating content for all of you. Thank you so much. If you want to make it into the list and immortalize yourself on the internet, join Patreon to get sneak peeks and behind the scenes footage of my work. I'm always looking for feedback on my content, guys, in order to improve, so making sure you always leave comment, like or dislike. Your reaction is very important. And remember,
you, yes you, are making a difference.
what we now know as Wolcen Lords of Mayhem has actually started as the game called Umbra, designed by the designed by the company from France called Solarfall Games in 2015. They started their Kickstarter campaign and they crowdfunded about $400,000 and literally doubled their original goal for the creation of the game. And a year later, on March 2016, I believe the game has launched on Steam Early Access under an absolutely different name called Wolcen Lords of Mayhem. And Solarfall Games has also renamed themselves to the Wolcen Studio, and since 2016 the game is now called Wolcen Lords of Mayhem as we know it right now. Another important fact to know is that Wolcen is supposed to be released in the end of 2016, as was mentioned on the original Kickstarter campaign. So March 2016 the game was in early access on Steam, and it was supposed to be to release later that year, 2016 again. But guess what, guys? It never happened, and the game has been in development for the next 4 years, literally. For the next 4 years, the game had literally no content and no development movement whatsoever. People have started asking questions like, what happened with $400,000 that went to the development of the game? A lot of people started to become skeptical because they didn't really know what was happening. Will the game ever be released or not? Is it coming? What is going on? What is the game which is supposed to be released in 2016 and just never happened? So for the last literally 3 years, like 2016, 2019, we haven't really seen any development progress whatsoever. Only this year, with the content update and the first big content update, things have actually started to move somewhat in the shaping up direction. We actually started to see some kind of a content, and surprisingly Wolcen Studio announced that we'll actually be releasing the whole game at the beginning of 2020 as well. So let's talk about the actual game bit by bit, little by little. I'll just explain you guys what the game is about. So let's start with the storyline, and the storyline is, I would say, is like pretty classic storyline about fighting the bad guys between the good guys, ancient evils, betrayals. There's also a really cool like an Inquisitor clan there existing in the game, different fractions fighting together for, you know, reputation, for the power, and all these kind of things, rivalry, betrayals, demons, ancient demons, guardians against ancient demons. That's pretty cool. I really like the cinematical cutscenes, which are not really cinematical, they are rendered on the engine, and that greatly reminding me about Lost Ark. It's kind of this quality of Lost Ark, and the game uses CryoEngine. At the start of the Umbra development, they uses CryoEngine 3, but I'm pretty sure that it's more advanced CryoEngine at this point, maybe a way upgraded version, but it definitely reminds me a lot about Lost Ark cutscene quality and does look amazing. And the storyline so far is nothing fancy about, but it does feel really nice. The graphics is definitely the strongest part and strength of the game, because it's absolutely fantastic in my opinion. It's way better than Path of Exile, way better than Last Epoch, way better than Diablo 3. It does look a little bit like Diablo 3, but it's definitely high quality, high detail, the smoothness of the animation, everything, the effects, just looks absolutely fantastic. The cutscenes is very, very strong, very high quality, guys. Graphically, the game, like I said, uses CryoEngine, probably some upgraded version of it. Looks fantastic. It looks very, very impressive. I think it's just it is a little bit behind Lost Ark. It does look like a lot like Lost Ark, but just a little bit of behind Lost Ark in terms of detail, because Lost Ark is just, guys, absolutely like unreachable amount of detail, interaction, cinematical stuff, theatrical stuff in Lost Ark, just on another dimension. This game really tries to be that good, and it does succeed. So visually the game is absolutely stunning. Speaking about the classes in the game, that's a pretty weird system here, where you basically start as melee, magic or ranged character and build your character as you go. It doesn't really force you into any of this, it just impacts your starting weapon and a skill, but it doesn't mean that you are becoming a mage or a bow user, because as you go you can find out different skills from the spellcasting areas or the ranged skills. You find practically all skills as you go for any of these identities. At the same time, I believe this is a very, very let's get lazy approach, because you see that there's practically no class in the game that you choose from. There's no real identity towards your specialization, towards your mastery. So practically you are classless. You don't really have a class, you don't really have any direct approach towards a character. You are a bunch, like a dummy of everything. And to be honest, I would say this is a very lazy, easy approach for developing an action RPG. I would really want something more targetable, something more direct, something more that I can think about as the thematical character, like a mage or a wizard or a ranged rogue or a hunter or the druid or whatever, you know, the casual stuff. They possibly think this is kind of a progressive way to give you a dummy they can build in any way, but in reality you just lose your identity and you don't even understand what you are doing, and your account kind of can try a lot of things, but at the same time this is your only character in the game without the real identity. So once you play this, I mean, you can play like a melee, magic or range, so there's practically 3 characters you can effectively play, I guess, make from this dummy, but that is all. After you play this 3 types of characters, you are pretty much done with the game. You exhaust your possibilities to try something, and this is, for me personally, where the game ends. I don't find this lack of master orientation to be the strength of the game. Speaking about the actual gameplay in combat, I think this is where the game actually hits the right spot. The gameplay in combat feels absolutely amazing, guys. I really enjoyed the combat in the Wolcen. I think it's very well made, it's smooth. There are some problems like walking instead of hitting something, and so I had to constantly press shift to attack where I stand, like attack stand still, but I think that might be fixed in the future with more requests coming. But overall, the gameplay and the combat feels absolutely amazing. Just amazing, guys. I really loved it. It's the perfect pace of the combat. It's quick and fast. It's very dangerous. You can get killed in under a second if you don't pay attention. So there's fantastic variation and combination of skills that you can use. There's skills that work as the generators for your rage, so you can gather rage. I'm playing the melee character right there, so you're getting rage as you hit something or get hit at the same time, and then you use kind of a fat cooldown skills with actually spend rage to really deal some decent amount of damage. Overall, very fluent, fantastic system, which I like. A combination of the generators and the cooldown skills, which I was really lacking in Lost Ark, where every fucking skill is on a cooldown. There's no generators in Lost Ark. You also always kind of wait for something to start attacking. In this game, you do not wait. You can just smack with your left button, start generating some range, jump with some cheap leap slam on the enemies, generate some rage, and start smacking with the more powerful skills. Overall, combat and gameplay feels absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Highly recommended this because this is probably one of the best feelings of combat I've seen in a long time. It's way better than Last Epoch. It's in right spot. It's better than Path of Exile because it don't really obliterate things in 1 second like in Path of Exile. It feels way faster and more responsive than the Last Epoch. Reminds me a lot of Diablo 3, but at the same time, due to different scaling of monsters, rare monsters can really kick your ass and takes a while to kill, so this is harder game. So overall, gameplay and combat is probably one of the strongest parts of the game. Speaking about the itemization and crafting, guys, the items actually look a lot like Diablo 3. Practically looks like a copy of Diablo 3, to be honest. There's different types of items like the but there's two shoulder armors, there's 2 claws, which is pretty cool. Also the belts, the weapons, 2 rings, the amulet, shield, boots, and all that stuff. At the same time, you can also insert jewels in your weapons and armor and pretty much everything, making them stronger, doing more damage, giving you more defense, like more block chance. So this is a system that obviously both Diablo 2 and Diablo 3 had, and Wolcen also has this as well. Unfortunately, guys, crafting is not existing so far, so it will be added at the moment of the release. I don't know what the crafting will be about. Maybe we can reroll some aspects like in Diablo 3. Maybe we can craft something on top of the missing affixes. Currently hard to tell. There's currently 3 things that you can do, which is to level up your skill gems by selling the skill gems. The skills you can buy and sell shit, or you can remove the sockets from your items, remove the jewels, sorry, from the items. So practically like that, or buy the jewels as well. So it looks a lot like Diablo 3, and overall in the very early video and a very early interview about the game, and then the Kickstarter page, they mentioned that the game is supposed to be like a mix of Skyrim, Diablo 3, and Diablo 1 atmosphere, and it does kind of catch a bit of all this. Definitely, I'm not so sure about Skyrim. I'm kind of not so sure about Diablo 1. It does feel creepy at times, but not that crazy. But Diablo 3 definitely, it copies a lot from Diablo 3, so this looks almost exactly like Diablo 3. And there's a chest over there where I just bought some shit over there. I'm just stacking some items. I have a lot of uniques there, and these are kind of legendary items which are stronger than the uniques as well. I got pistols, so you can be a ranged character as well. So overall, looks pretty good, but nothing spectacular. All the armor items, for example, have 3 different variations of them: health resistance, health, and force field, so 4 variations. So force field is like energy shield and Path of Exile. As you can see, I have very like low amount of energy shield on top, so if I put this like that, as you can see, I have a little more a little more force field there on top. So yeah, as a mage you can definitely stack more force field if you wish. So that's about it. Speaking about the passive skill tree system, this is it. And this is called the Gate of Fates, and this is actually a very simplified version of Path of Exile, a skill system. It's just practically start from the center, and you can move in any direction, like stacking more force field, spell damage, stacking more melee attack damage, attack speed, rage generation. There's also kind of a different sections of this tree as being more like dex based, melee based, intelligence based. This is different things like the assassin. This is called a Praetorian, kind of a master classes, but in reality this is not master classes. This is just the names that is pretense. This is a kind of a master classes, but in general it's not. The coolest thing about the system itself is this kind of a copy of Path of Exile with a twist, and by twist I mean you can actually rotate this shit. So you can rotate this, and yeah, that's about it. This is kind of a wheels that you can move. You can connect to different sides of the tree, which is, I believe, is kind of an upgrade over Path of Exile, because in Path of Exile you're gonna stretch out from the left to the right if you're gonna try to get to these acrobatics or get some juicy crit notes on the right. Or if you want to go to the life, you get to stretch over to the bottom, get to the fight life wheel. But in this game, you can actually rotate, kind of predetermine what you're gonna do. Like if you want to aim for the assassin part of the tree, is taking more crit, you can try to stretch out or rotate it to this. And this big wheel is still not available. It will be available at the time of the release. There will obviously be some very powerful skills over there. Overall, the skill system is very simple. No complexity of Path of Exile here, guys. It's very simple. Most of the nodes are just, just attack damage, move speed, attack speed modifier, melee damage, attack damage, some move speed, casting speed, crit. That's no fancy shit. There's no complexity of Path of Exile here whatsoever. The active skill system in the game is presented by things called anorex, which are kind of a tomes of skills from Diablo 1, which you drop from different monsters. Pretty much area, right click on this and you learn this spell or a skill. So then it goes over here, and if you place it on this active skill bar, it starts gathering experience as you go and just hit your mobs. You don't really need to use the skill to get experience. You just place this and practically use it. Place it and it starts gathering experience. So once the skill gathers experience, you can unlock additional kind of modifiers for the skill, making it more damage, reducing the cost. You can also unclick and for example use a very powerful modifier instead of like free weak. You can use like one very powerful modifier, so you can decide and then tweak the skill a little bit, like doing more damage, like a lot of AoE, or dramatically reducing the cost. There are also very many different skills that you unlock, and if you're playing the melee character, it doesn't mean that you only unlock melee skills. You can unlock like the spells and the range skills. You practically just unlock and learn all the skills as you go. But since you are not using them, it is not gaining any experience at level 1, as you can see. So I'm using mostly melee skills here whatsoever. Another important thing to understand about the skill system in this game is the skills are tied to the weapon types that you use. So if you see the skill, it doesn't really matter that you can really use it on your melee character, because as you can see, this skill, Strings of Crearian, uses bows and pistols. So this is kind of also a system which is similar to Path of Exile, because some skills require you to use the bow or a melee or a specific melee weapon like the dagger or an axe. You can use it with like say a sword or a shield, for example. So most skills are tied towards specific weapons, and this is the similarity to Path of Exile here. Another important thing to mention is that the types of resources that you manage in this game. There are two types of resources, which are willpower and rage. You gain rage as you hit the enemies or they hit you, so they kind of become more aggressive, generating rage. And by spending rage you can use some very powerful skills like big attacks, different war cries, shouts, placing some crazy turrets and shit. And using willpower you can actually cast some spells. This is mostly definitely a spellcaster oriented skills like this jump, annihilation, different spells, some fireballs and all this shit. So yeah, willpower and rage are two different types of resources you'll be spending and generating in this game. Speaking about the end game mechanics, like what you should be doing after you complete the storyline, there are currently two variations what you can do. First is this. This is kind of a bounties in Diablo 3, which is a quest which you need to accomplish. After the quest you get some loot. I personally don't see any reason to do this because you get so much loot from the killing monsters itself. So I don't really understand why this thing is even there. This quest seems to be like they give you literally no profits compared to the amount of time you invest into them. Another thing is these things, which is an expeditions to the twisted dungeons, and this looks pretty much like Great Rifts in Diablo 3. You go to this rift or a dungeon, you start killing monsters, killing the boss, and you can also go down to the next level, which is harder, and at the same time you get more and more loot the deeper you go. You can also unlock harder difficulties, giving you more rarity and magic find, as well as the making the monsters tougher and stronger. At the same time, this is all about the loot and grinding experience for the sake of grinding. And honestly, this is your Diablo 3 right there. No reason to play this, simply because it's a grind for the sake of grind. There's no real reason to do this outside of just grinding better gear and levels. There's no motivation. Honestly, these rifts and bounties take so much time that I found it pretty boring pretty fast, so I did a couple of this and then I was already pretty bored with no real intention to go there the second time. So I don't know, I think that the end game is currently in a very boring state and needs to be kind of a more motivational to motivate the player to go there to do something that is worthwhile spending the time on. Currently, I don't see this as a very fun approach. Speaking about multiplayer, PvP, and whatever, there is actually a cooperative mode. You can make a completely open game, like a public game, and play it with whatever, I guess, people will connect to. And at the same time, you can play with friends, so this is pretty close to what Diablo 3 has. At the same time, the game has no letters, leaderboards or whatever. There's no really intensive to grind anything at the same time as far as I can figure it out. So, you know, just mostly like a single player game with cooperative mode whatsoever. There's no PvP as well. You know, this game is not an MMO, it's more like a single player game in general, so there's no PvP, you can't kill anyone there. This is pretty weird, but that they neglected PvP. I don't think it will be very hard to implement. Maybe it will be implemented at some point of the game if it will be pretty popular, but for now, no PvP, no letters or leaderboards, but there is existing multiplayer in the game. Now let's talk about the cons of the game, because there's quite a lot of them in my opinion. Even though the game looks beautiful and it plays very smoothly and the combat is amazing, unfortunately there's still quite a few problems within it. The first problem that I personally see is the absolutely no motivation to play in the end game. You know, grinding gear for the sake of grinding gear and levels, I don't find it a good motivation in an action RPG. There's no letters, there's no competitive, there's nothing, there's no PvP. So grinding just gear for the sake of grinding gear in the dungeons, it seems like a very weak motivation for the longevity of the game as a whole. I think that a lot of people would get bored extremely fast with that. I got bored pretty fast with that, and I don't see how people will get really entertained for a long enough time with this so far. Another con is definitely the lack of the identity on the mastery classes. There's literally no classes in the game. You just make your character whatever you want, but this once again is losing identity, because literally you have on a free kind of free orientations towards your development of the character, which is the ranged class, the spellcaster class, or the melee class, and that's about it. Once you get all this free done, I don't know what else could be down there. Who will play this further on, because it's just literally free kind of classes in the game, and it's quite easy and fast to explore all the possibility of skills and shit. So free classes is just not enough. At the same time, there's a little bit of a problem with the balance in the game. Combat feels a little weird sometimes, because instead of attacking you just move. So there must be some kind of a fix for this problem, because you know the way you interact and kill with the monsters are pretty weird sometimes. The combat feels great, but at the same time constantly missing monsters and moving and then dying because of that, it's a bit awkward and feels really weird. At the same time, there's a big disbalance in some skills. Some skills are just incredibly overpowered, like for example the turret that you place as a melee character. Turret can be used with daggers, and if you place the turret, it literally kills bosses in like 2-3 seconds, in comparison to the other skills where you can spend like a couple of minutes killing boss. This is a big disbalance, and really hope that some of this skills will be fine-tuned for the proper damage on them, because they're just extremely overpowered or extremely weak at the same time on the other side of the spectrum. So that's about it for now. Now we come pretty close to the end of the video, and here comes probably the biggest con so far, and this is definitely the price at the time of the release, and they will be increasing the price of the game to about $45 or 40 euros. This is a very bold move, which Steam community did not really understand at all, because you know the game is not really a plus title at this point. It has been in development for over fucking 5 years at least, and a lot of backers put their money into it like 4 years ago, and they are increasing the price for the people who are still not in the game, and I think most people think that the guys, they're just dramatically reducing their chance to even sell the game at this point. You know, it has been a very long in development game, and the content that will present in the game, we think that it will be not long living enough. It just be not enough to really you know, justify the price which they're raising for $45. This is not your Diablo 3 at all, definitely. So the price that will be increasing in January at the moment of release will be very high in my opinion, and will definitely not increase the audience in any way. So this is very questionable. Even though we'll definitely getting more content, like one free act instead of one act, it will be more levels, more skills. It will be also the new endgame system, as well as the new complete apocalyptic forms with their dedicated skills and attacks, which is kind of a demonic thing in Wolcen, but still it doesn't really justify the price of the game, considering how long it has been in development, how long people have been craving to actually play the whole fucking game, how long it took for them to develop all this shit. At this point, losing the majority of their audience, losing faith in this. So I think this is a pretty bold move, and I cannot justify it. So that's all my thoughts on the Wolcen, guys, and to summarize it all, I want to say that the only reason why you even might think about buying this game is just buy it at right now on sale for about like what, $10-15, and now this is your best chance to buy it, because in January it will be already completely impossible in my opinion to buy this, logically justifying your purchase of this game for this amount of money. But for now you can do it while it's still pretty cheap. I think it's well worth the money, but not in January by all means. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.